Good morning. If I can ask everybody to find a cozy chair, come on in. We'll get started. So we want to welcome you this morning to our Ethos community. We're a place where you can be authentically you, a place where you can belong, and a place where you can become the best version of yourself. I'm excited about that. We got Jason back.
Yes.
Yeah, Jason's back. It's a happy Father's Day weekend. We're going to have something special for you guys in a little bit. And we're starting our brand new series. Yes! Oh, I forgot. So if you keep up with our emails, our newsletters that come out every week from Tony, he'll tell you what's happening, some things to focus on, and then I love them. Every week I love reading them. I love it. Keep it up. So in that newsletter, he said, if you guys want to stay up with the series, get your copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. Some of you may have already read this book. I have never. Never. So I'm super excited. So if you don't have a copy, you want to stay up with the series, you can go get one. I'm enjoying it so far. I went ahead to the next chapter.
You couldn't stop?
No, I couldn't stop. I just kept right on going. So I also want to tell you the series name is called Life According to Scout. Scout's the star of the story, I take it? Okay. I can't wait to see what she does. And then today our series title, or our sermon title, teaching we'll call it, is When Family Trees Don't Define Us. When family trees don't define us. So I'm looking forward to that. Jason, with that, we would love to hear from you. Thanks for joining us today.
Something that interests me about music and how it corresponds with the decade in which it was written, or even the specific year, is there tends to be like this alternating escape from what's happening in the world, lean into what's happening in the world. And you see sort of this like ebb and flow, ping pong zigzag thing happen. And in the 20s and the 30s, when the Great Depression was going on, people really wanted to escape. Happened during World War II, too. That's why we had big bands swing. People were wanting to jump, jive, and wail, and all of that jazz. And one song that I particularly like because of its frivolous nature really helps kind of lay out the dichotomy that is life, and the option to either, wallow in the suffering that is always imminent, or choose to celebrate what's happening. And it's a song from the 30s, right? Kind of Depression era. It's called On the Sunny Side of the Street. And there's one line that says, "If I never had a cent, I'd be rich as Rockefeller. Gold dust at my feet on the sunny side of the street." And so the whole thing is about choosing to walk on the sunnier side of the street, really choosing joy, which is one of the ways that even scientifically has been proven that we can renew and refresh and restore our minds. One thing I was telling Tony is while I was driving here this morning, I had unlocked my phone to call somebody back. And this woman behind me saw that my phone was on, and she honked at me. And then she zipped to the left, came up next to me, and gave me the big old bird. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what did I do? I wanted to pull over, and I wanted to ask, what did I do? I was more confused than I was upset. But in that moment, I had to choose to not hate her in my heart. I could have been that friggin' old broad, what's our deal, all this stuff, right? But it was just I don't know her story. Maybe she knew somebody that got in a crazy accident because of a texting and driving accident. And so even this morning, I was sort of confronted with that choice of, am I going to walk on the sunny side or more on the shady side of the street? So Song from the 1930s. Well, grab your coat and get your hat and leave your worries on the doorstep. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. Can't you hear the pitter pat? And that happy tune is swinging your step. Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street. I used to walk in the shade with my blues on parade. Now I'm not afraid, 'cause this rover has crossed over. If I never had a cent, I'd be rich as Rockefeller, gold dust at my feet on the sunny side of the street. Well, can't you hear the pitter pat? The happy tune is swinging your step. Life can be so sweet on the sunny side of the street. I used to walk in the shade with my blues on parade. Now I'm not afraid, 'cause this rover is crossed over. If I never had a cent, I'd be rich as Rockefeller, gold dust at my feet on the sunny, on the shady, on the sunny side of the street. Da 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 da. Jazz hands, everybody. Cool. I love jazz. I'm sorry. It was bluesy. Yeah, it breaks down on that little chorus. Do it, man. As long as you're doing 2 and 4. You don't do a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's how you do it. That's good. I played this song once a few months ago here. And it's really in the same ballpark of mindset. His song was written by Charlie Chaplin, right? He had somewhat of a tragic life, but he went on to become an entertainer and sort of alleviate the pains and sorrows of a lot of people with his physical comedy. And it's ironic that a silent movie actor wrote one of the most beautiful songs, I think, of the 20th century. And Nat King Cole made it famous. Smile, though your heart is aching. Smile, even though it's breaking. And when there are clouds in the sky, you'll get by. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile, and maybe tomorrow, and you'll see the sun come shining through for you. up your face with gladness. Hide every trace of sadness. Although a tear may be ever so near, that's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use in crying? And you'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. So, tomorrow is Father's Day, and not to exploit my own painful circumstances for the sake of emotion or song emphasis and meaning, but like I lost my dad last year, right? And so my brothers and I, we have a decision to make tomorrow, and just like we did last week when it was the 1-year anniversary of his passing, we had to gather around and say, are we going to honestly acknowledge what's going on, which is always the first step, no matter what. And from there, are we going to wallow in our misery, which sometimes it's okay to do too, or are we going to kind of shift our perspective and be grateful for what's still here? And so no matter what's happening tomorrow with you guys on Father's Day, there's lots of broken relationships all across probably this room, this city, in terms of fathers and things. And it sounds a bit trite, but again, there's a decision to make of like, how are we going to approach it with a perspective that allows things to be a little bit more life-giving and hold us back from bitterness. The book that Tony and I were reading, we talked about last week, the whole thing goes into the brain science of consciously acknowledging and celebrating the things in life and how it makes us more joyful people. So as trite as this song may sound at times, it actually is backed by neurologists. When you smile deliberately, write out and count your blessings, we do find that life is still worthwhile. If you smile through your fear and sorrow, smile and maybe tomorrow you'll find that life is still worthwhile if you just smile. Cool. Yeah, it's, typically we've done the songs at the end. I have work on Saturdays, and that's why I haven't been here. And Tony's like, just come and do the songs at the beginning. And I'm really happy I get to do that. In honor of my dad for Father's Day, this is a song I sang last week that is about renewing our minds. And I wear this necklace that says that old Bible verse, be still and know that I am God. And it's one of the few scriptures I find myself not ever needing to be critical of. Where I'm like, yeah, it's good. Just be still and be humbled, right? It's by the Eagles. It's just another day in paradise as you stumble to your bed. Give anything to silence those voices ringing in your head. You thought you could find happiness just over that green hill. You thought you would be satisfied, but you never will. Learn to be still. Like sheep without a shepherd, we don't know how to be alone. So we wander around this desert and find up following the wrong God's home. But the flock cries out for another. They keep answering that bell. And one more starry-eyed Messiah meets a violent farewell. Learn to be still. That's crazy. Like sheep without a shepherd, we don't know how to be alone. I have friends from Germany staying at my house this week, and they keep calling Americans smombies, which is their term for smartphone zombies. Right? And it's like, especially in our culture, we really don't know. Yeah, we really don't know how to be alone. And there's something so healing for the human brain to just be still. Now the flowers in your garden, they don't smell so sweet, so sweet. And maybe you've forgotten the heaven lying at your feet. So many contradictions in all these messages we send. Keep asking, how do I get out of here? And where do I fit in? Though the world is torn and shaken, even if your heart is breaking, it's waiting for you to awaken. And someday you will learn to be still. So, no matter what's been happening this week with you guys, like if it's been fast-paced or slow-paced, just take a second to hear the voice of a crying baby and possibly the voice that's inside of our heads that's been wanting to say something to us all week. Could be anything from, oh man, I need to rest. Or I need to look at my bank account this week. Right? Whatever that is, just take a second to be still. Like sheep without a shepherd, we don't know how to be alone. So we wander around this desert to wind up following the wrong God's home. Cool.
Thank you for always speaking to my heart and bringing me into a place where I can be still. Thank you for that. Appreciate you. Your last song made me think about something that happened this week and something we talked about last week, which was how is it that we replenish ourselves? And Desi and I had a moment before she went to work on Monday. She goes, Mom, you're hugging me and you're like leaning on me. I'm feeling something off of you. And it didn't occur to me until we started talking. I was like carrying all kinds of people's weight on my shoulders. I had no clue I was even doing it. It's what I do. And I took a minute that day and I thought, wow, I'm going to remember what we talked about last week, and I'm just going to get myself by myself and do whatever it is I need to do for that day. And I came out feeling at the end like, I'm breathing. I'm breathing again. So thank you for reminding me. Yeah, and thank you for reminding me. It was good. And you. Anybody else? Thank you too. I got to remind you. So let's remember these little connect cards. Most of you have had Christy come up and say, could you please refill this thing out? Because we've made a new spreadsheet, which is awesome, because some of you this week that I didn't get to hand out the member appreciation letters to, I got to mail them to you. And this little card made that happen. So, but there is one little trick with this little card. It has a front side, but it has a back side too. And when we were looking at these cards, we realized a lot of people didn't flip them over and take a look at them. So at some point, especially after we have member appreciation, what would be really awesome, because these are ways for you to get involved, get more support, so that's what the back is about. So we like to hear from you. So anytime that we get a new person, hand them a card, help us out. Or if you think of something that you need, flip it over, fill it out, and turn it into our little jar. That would be awesome. We have a couple of announcements. One is we have a great, exciting event that's going to happen the end of this month on a Saturday at 10:30, Member Appreciation Day. We can't wait to pour out some appreciation on you guys for all that you do, for being present with us. We're looking forward to it. It's going to be a special day. And then we're going to wrap it up that night doing something that we used to do a lot, which was have outdoor movie nights. They are so much fun. We eat, we sit outside, we can see the stars, the breeze comes through, and we get to watch a movie and enjoy that time together. So I hope you can join us. If you can, that'll be something you'll want to let Christy know so that she can kind of plan for space and food and figure out what everybody's helping to bring. Hope you can come. Lastly, whatever it is that you feel you can do to help out our Ethos community financially, we would appreciate it for keeping us going and alive and thriving. We thank you for what you are doing and look forward to where we're going. So thanks for always being there to support us with that. Did I forget anything? I think we're good. Okay. All right, Jason, we're ready.
As much as I love my dad, he was human, very, very human. And my mom was also that way. And because human beings are social creatures, we get our impressions of what real life is like based on our upbringing. And I'm so grateful I was able to grow up in the church and be surrounded by a lot of really loving people within the church that I was a part of, because they helped give me an opportunity to heal some of the misconceptions I had about how I ought to be loved and how reality sort of works. So my dad, with his substance abuse problems and things like that, and some of his inconsistencies, I could look at the very least the idea of a God, of a perfect God, and I could get some healing in that space, sort of re-socialized, right? My mind would be like, oh, that's what consistency looks like. That's what goodness, like the ideal of goodness, looks like. And I know in this room we have people from different theological backgrounds. And so if you don't resonate with the idea of God as a conscious entity, I know most of us do, that there's still meaning that can be extracted from this, in the sense that we can find a model of what the ideal of consistency and reliability is in the portrayal of who God is, and it can re-socialize our minds to become better humans. There's no give and take away. There's no game I need to play. There's no waiting for the spring. Your love is evergreen. There's no key I need to turn. There's no trick I need to learn. There's no mark I need to meet. Your love is evergreen. Your love is evergreen. Oh, your love is evergreen. There's no war I have to fight. There's no need to be polite. There's no way I have to be. Your love is evergreen. And there's no hill I need to climb. And there's no flag I need to fly. There's no song I have to sing. Your love is evergreen. Your love is evergreen. Your love is evergreen. There's no promise you won't keep. There's no distance you won't reach. There's no season in between. Your love is evergreen. 'Cause you don't give and take away. You don't play the games we play. You're not waiting for the spray. Your love is evergreen. Your love is evergreen. I have a friend who this week, he was spending time with this girl that he likes, that he's dating. And they had some it's pretty fresh into the relationship. I will not disclose his name for his own privacy, but he decided one night that, they wanted to go physically further than maybe they were ready for at the time. And the next morning he woke up from her house and his car got towed. And he was like, man, I feel like, God's just trying to send me a sign that, like I should have been a little bit, more responsible, done the right thing, all this stuff. And I was like, dude, that's not how it works, man. It was like, it's not a game. It's not punishment and consequence. It's all love. Right. And even, if you had decided to behave in a different way, like that would have been based on a motive of love and not of fear, right? And so I like this line, despite growing up and hearing songs like, you give and take away, you give and take away, right? And there's a time and a place for an idea like that, but often it can lead to an unhealthy thing of like, oh, this is gone because God took it from me because I did something wrong. And so let's sing this part one more time and just sing some healing over our mindsets. 'Cause you don't give and take away. You don't play the games we play. You're not waiting for the spring. Your love is evergreen. Your love is evergreen. Your love is evergreen. think we want to have a similar kind of love. Let our love be evergreen. Let our love be evergreen. Cool. Thanks, guys. So unfortunately, I have to go back to work. I want to stay with you guys.
I love when you started playing that praise song. Because there was a part of me that I remember singing that bridge over and over and over again. Yeah. Praise and worship. And
Yeah.
I remember even then thinking, man, it just doesn't sit right with me. And even then I wasn't sure exactly why.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I'm calling
so
you
good.
out, Matt Redman.
Yeah. It's a beautiful song. It's still a beautiful song. Thank you, Jason. Did everyone get the chicken and the ribs and the corn and all of that stuff? Was that good? Good stuff. So Monel and Steve, Anna, they made a lot of really good food. So make sure to thank them today and then tomorrow when you're eating normal food and you're like, I wish I had that food again. Make sure to keep thanking them. Be, belong, become. That's our motto, and it's meant more and more to me as we continue moving along. Be, belong, become. What I like about Jason's sets usually is he invites me into that. He invites me into just being, and then I realize I'm not alone in my singing. I'm belonging to something. I'm becoming something. It's just a powerful thing. So we're going to go into this new series, and I'm kind of excited about it. How many of you have ever heard of this book, watched the movie, or read the book? Anybody? To Kill a Mockingbird. I'll give you a hint. It's not a manual on how to kill a mockingbird. Like, that's not the book. I was introduced to this book when I was pretty young, and I remember it was in my mom had a box full of books from college, and usually this is one of the books that you'll find in like those courses, the first couple courses of English in college. And I remember it sitting there, and I thought, sweet. It's about something about killing birds and things, and that sounds interesting. So I pick it up as a little kid. I think I was maybe I was about 10 when I think about it, so I wasn't super little. But I remember picking it up and reading it and thinking, oh, that was really interesting. But I didn't pick up on all the interesting, subtle nuances of it. I didn't pick up on the issues of racism, class distinction. I didn't pick up on the questions of like, how does one find an ethic and a moral to live by? All of this kind of things. I missed it, but it was a really interesting book. And so I kept reading it, though. Every couple of years, I'd find myself reading it. And what I'm finding about the literature that I read all throughout my teen years in college and now is the story of Jesus seems to just permeate everything I pick up lately. No matter what I'm watching, reading, listening to, I'm hearing that message over and over again. And so I wanted to share with you is everywhere we go, let me say this. When Jesus referenced like how to live well, and he shared stories and parables, what were the typical things he would point out? Like, what would he use to make his points, his stories, what were they about?
Injustice. Things that were common to their everyday living.
Okay, good. So yeah, like a mustard seed, a prodigal son, sheep, goats, lilies. Yeah, in Orange County, we probably wouldn't talk about sheeps and goats. We might talk about the beach. Good. Traffic. Seals, fish tacos, yeah. Those are the things we would make reference to, right? In his era, those are the things he made reference to. And so please understand, good teachings are usually referring to the things that are common of that time, and they're wrapping it up in stories. And that's why I think it's beautiful when a true follower of Christ is living in the world, they're seeing that message everywhere. And it's almost like you can't escape it. Once you've heard it, it becomes such a part of you that you pick up a book like this and you're like, oh, Harper Lee was really just retelling the story, wasn't she? She just told it from a Southern perspective during the Great Depression. Are you guys ready? So obviously we're going to do some interesting things with it. You don't have to read the book to understand where we're going. So please, I'll set your mind at ease at that point too. But I will do some recaps, little bits here and there. But if you own the book, try to pick it up and read the first couple chapters. And because you will find this whole thing's going to hum. It's just going to hum. And at the end of the series, of course, we're going to watch the movie together because it's beautiful. It's really good. What's his name? Peck. Gregory Peck. I always want to say Richard Peck. Gregory Peck. He was famous for this role as Atticus, the father. And as we go through it, you're going to see the father figure couldn't be better played than by Atticus, by Gregory Peck in this movie. And this is brilliant. So here we go. Let's step into it. Remember last week we talked about a good story is going to have a couple things in the beginning. It's going to have a good main character. And by the way, did you enjoy last week? Wasn't that fun? Kevin kept telling me over and over again, he was so just loved it. He loved every second of it. He said he misses that because he doesn't get a chance to have what we have every week. He said this is something he wishes he had. And so I thought, oh, so he just really loved being here and he felt loved as well. A good story is going to have some things. It's going to have main characters, settings, conflicts. Your main character, remember we talked about Frodo? You got to have that main character. And the character's got to evolve. He's got to grow. And so a good story is going to have a character who moves and changes and grows. How boring would a movie be, or a show, or a book, if the character just stayed the same the entire time? It wouldn't be interesting. And again, how interesting would your life be if you never changed, never grown, never evolved, never questioned? So that's the idea of the conflict, character resolution, all of that. So I want to introduce you to Scout. Isn't she adorable, by the way? This little girl, after playing this role, she goes on to do some things here and there, but basically they found her and they said, this girl is like the quintessential picture of the Deep South. And even the way she spoke and everything was perfect. She hadn't done a lot of acting. And so when you watch the movie, you're just going to be floored. But she basically was just playing herself. She just fits so well into Harper Lee's perspective. So the narrator, the protagonist, is going to be Scout. Jean Louise Scout. That's her nickname, is Scout. Her brother's Jem, and they have a black cook, Calpurnia. They live in Macomb. She's really intelligent, witty, fun. She's a little girl that is not afraid to get her hands dirty. She's always playing with the boys. She's beating up the boys. That's Scout. And so you're going to fall in love with the character Scout. Now, here's the thing. The character, the Scout individual, is writing in present day looking back and then telling the story from the perspective of a little girl. So just from that perspective, what happens when a little kid shares with you a story? They say, guess what happened at school today? As parents, Stephen went out, when your kids come home and they tell you a story about school, and what kind of flags go up for you when you hear the story? What things might come up from their story that you think, well, let me ask a couple questions about that? Or parents in general, anybody?
Yeah, I listen to the heart of the story and what their experience was, but I'm on guard to watch out for the monsters in the story.
Okay, good. Yeah. Sometimes from a kid's perspective, the thing gets really big, or they'll make some additions, right? I like hearing some of my kids' stories because all of a sudden I'll think, boy, I swear I heard that story somewhere else. Are you sure that was you? And sometimes I don't even ask. I just listen and enjoy it and just respect that's their story. That's the story they're sharing. So from Scout's perspective, as an audience, we're just going to be kind of aware that's a little girl. She's sharing from her perspective. Just like, again, if you're reading the Bible, you're going to understand the Bible's from a Jewish perspective, right? How are the Romans going to look? Well, they're always evil, always terrible, right? You'll get it. You'll get the perspective. It's important to understand. So for Scout, she's got this big family tree of people, all the different characters involved. And so these are all different characters we're going to meet. Not super important yet that you get to know all of them yet. But just Scout, her father Atticus, her brother Jem, older brother Jem, and then Calpurnia is their maid. So you're going to be introduced to all these people, and you're going to love them. Here's what I'd like you to consider for a moment. Friendships, relationships, because this story is really going to kind of anchor on the idea of friendships and relationships. What happens to someone in the middle of crisis when they don't have friends or community or relationships? So I like some of these quotes, and I wanted to share with you before I get into the groupthink. There are friends who destroy each other, but a real friend sticks closer than a brother. Anyone like that one? Yeah, like real friends, they stick close. They stick close. I like this one from C.S. Lewis. Friendship is born at that moment when one person says to another, "What? You too? I thought I was the only one." Isn't that good? And then this one, Winnie the Pooh. If you live to be 100, I hope I live to be 100 minus one day, so I never have to live without you. Isn't that beautiful? Friends, they rely on each other. Not being together, not having that friendship is almost, it's painful without that person, even though they can sometimes frustrate you. Man, so important. So here's what I want you to do with the person or people around you. I want you to just consider for a minute the relationships you have. Does everyone have a friend? A relation? Yeah, good. Okay, so good. Then we're all able to answer this question. So, what are your relationships like? And when I ask that question, would you describe them as healthy, frustrating, good, bad, ugly? What are your friendships, your relationships like? Secondly, describe 3 people you consider to be friends. And I'm not talking about just acquaintances, but friends, like friends. And then lastly, do you have healthy friendships? And you're going to have your own take on what healthy means, right? So have that moment together, and then we're going to open it up to discuss a little bit, because this is like these are loaded 3 questions. But as the music kind of plays in the background, just take a minute and talk about that with the people next to you. What are your friendships, your relationships like? Describe 3 people you consider friends. Do you have healthy friendships? And we're a small group today, so make sure everybody has someone to talk to. Is Tim coming back? Okay, good. Good, I'm looking out for you. Okay, good. So yeah, talk to the people next to you and see where it goes. Cool. We give you 2 more minutes. Should I give you guys a few more minutes? Maybe a few more minutes, or I'm just gonna cut you off. Stay where you are. Here's I want to just open it up and hear what y'all have to say. Describe for me an unhealthy friendship or relationship. Let's go there first. What does an unhealthy friendship or relationship look like?
Okay, so there's basically these concepts of if someone's like a teacher to a student,
Okay, good.
or a mom or a parent to a child.
Got a parent to a child, yeah. That's a great marriage right there. I'm sorry, Danielle, for you having to pick my socks up sometimes.
Or just someone who has to like oversee someone else for any reason like that in their own mind and in their own heart. So that's a totally out of balance one.
One up here.
Exactly. It's very energetically horrible. Or
Exhausting.
like a mean person and a victim, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Gotcha, okay. Good.
Two over here. So for me, it would be if there's always an expectation from the other person that I would be for them everything
Wow.
they need me to be.
Gotcha.
Because what that's turned into for me when I'm around that person is I have to carry them.
Mm-hmm.
I have to carry them. They're not their own individuals standing on their own 2 feet. I have to carry them. And that's been a lot of relationships I've been in. So now I'm like, ooh, red sign goes up. Nope, I'm not
Gotcha.
carrying you.
Which could be exhausting to always carry.
And just
Oh, sorry.
to piggyback off both of them, I think it's not like one instance of that relationship of being a donor, because that does happen. At one point you're a donor, at one point you're a taker. But it's the consistency of that relationship staying that way in those roles that I think qualifies it as unhealthy.
Gotcha. It just becomes a bit toxic when always give, take.
And one, a really unhealthy one is like one that is just the giver and one's the taker, and it doesn't ever change. I mean, any healthy one is give and take both, and they're equally, but there are some that just take and then
Never
it's
give.
depleted.
Yeah. Exhausting.
Yes.
Okay, we got the negative out of the way. So, isn't it funny how it's so easy to because we know what negative relationships look like. Tell me about now what does a positive, life-giving relationship or friendship look like for you?
Well, one of the things for me is I have a lot of friends. I just know a lot of people, and I like meeting new people. I'm a very low maintenance friend, where I don't need to talk to you for 3 months, and we'll pick up right back where we left off. So many people are oh well, they don't talk to me anymore, and I'm no, I'm just life gets busy, and I'll randomly think about you, text you, say hey, and that's how it is for me and a lot of my friends. Is we don't need to be in constant contact. We already know that we already have that friendship.
I like that. You're pretty understanding of each other, and that we all have lives, and that's good. It's beautiful.
I think a relationship relationship where, for me, my own experience is that a friend who's gonna love you thick and thin. They're gonna be there, whether it's ugly or it's not. They're there, they got your back, and they're not gonna let you get off the hook either. They care
Nice.
enough about you to tell you the truth, and not just say you gotta do it and move on, but to be there if it takes even walking you through the process.
Nice. Oh, I like that. They tell you the hard truth, but they're willing to walk with you through it. They're not just the critic. Call me, get together, we'll hang out. Yeah, good.
Like they have it together.
All right, yeah, exactly.
We're all having
For me, the first day I walked in here to Ethos, felt like a friend. A friend that would hold space for me,
Nice.
accept me as I am, inspire me to be better, show an example, and just love.
That's cool. Well, we love you, Pam. We love you, Pam.
It's funny because we're talking about the negatives and we say, oh, because we don't want this from the person has to change, they can't only be like this. But then we're talking about the positive, we're saying the same thing. Oh, I need them to be like this, I need them, and we take ourselves out of the equation. I think it takes two, and it takes yourself to allow them to be your friend and allow you to be their friend. When I was trying to describe to her what I consider a friend, I just heard myself keep saying, I. So I must do this, I must do that, and if I feel. So my last thing I said to her is, a friend to me is not what they're gonna do for me or how they are. I don't want them to change their person just to be my friend. What, then they're gonna have to change when they're her friend, and then they're gonna change when they're her friend? It's, the last thing I said to her was, I think a friend to me is when I know that I'm gonna spend time with this person, and I don't have to think, oh, am I gonna hold myself to say this? Or if I'm there, I know, oh, they're gonna talk about their new puppy they just got, whatever, for 4 hours. But even knowing that, I'm still willing to put myself in that situation for 4 hours. Then that's a friend.
Yeah.
If I'm not, then you're just an acquaintance or you're just somebody that I know.
Oh, that's good. A friend of mine was, he was pastoring, and one of the pieces of advice he gave to other pastors, he said, there are work friends, and then there are friends. He said there are people who it's work, like it's just work. And then there are the, I can just be myself, and I can relax, and I can just say what comes to my mind, or I can hold space without, there's work, and then there's friends.
Those work friends, I feel like a lot of the time they have an expectation of who it is that they want you to be, or you feel the pressure to perform a certain way for those people. And when you're in real friendships, you're allowed to be two completely different people with your own sense of individuality. And when you come together, the way you complement one another feels effortless.
Nice. Oh, that's good. I know it's interesting. Like when we started Ethos, and I'm like, this is all of us in this room will understand this. When we started it, we're all just a bunch of friends. Like we're just gonna do this thing, and then we start it, and all of a sudden we're in different leadership roles, and we're like, and then all of a sudden a barbecue is not a barbecue. Guess what it is? It's like a meeting, and we have to talk about ethos stuff, and it's been an interesting balance, and we're not there yet. I don't think we're there yet, but we're getting there slowly. But learning to like hold space and just say, let's just go see a movie, let's just do this, or let's just play whatever that weird Crimes Against Humanity, is that it? Yeah. What is it? Cards Against Humanity, whatever. Yeah. Crimes Against Humanity. Feels like it. Yeah. So yeah, it's just interesting, like the weird balance and all of that. Yeah, friendship is good. Oh, that's so good. We could probably talk about this for the next 20 minutes, but I have a bunch of other things that we can, that I thought we'd go over. Relationships in this book are going to be really crucial. And I would argue, again, relationships just in general are going to be really crucial just for our own journey, our own stories. And so I wanted to share with you, this setting also is really important in this book. This book, it was set in the Great Depression era. Anyone know anything about the Great Depression? Mike would probably be able to say it better than me. Mike, sum up the Great Depression in like 2 sentences.
I mean, everyone was poor. because of the stock market, and yeah, even farmers were struggling. So yeah, everybody was. It was the beginning of the social programs in the government, actually.
There we go. Good. Yeah. Basically, economy completely drops. Money is worthless, and everyone basically is poor. And that's why even in the book you'll find Scout will say to Atticus about an individual who they see walking down the street, "Is he poor, Dad?" And he says, "Yes." And then she says, "Are we poor?" "Yes." "Is he poorer than us?" "Maybe." It's just an interesting time to be living in where the whole economy drops and people now have to rely on each other or they're not going to get through it. And that's an interesting challenge during the Great Depression they had to learn is we're not going to make it through this thing unless we have deep-rooted community. And that's where actually churches become really important for people because that's where actually they begin to bring resources together and they begin to live more and more in community. In the Great Depression era. So here's the beginning of the video, and I thought, interesting, great way to introduce the setting of Macomb County, which is in Alabama, southern Alabama. So here you go. I'm just going to share the video.
Macomb was a tired old town, even in 1932 when I first knew it. Somehow it was hotter then. Men's stiff collars wilted by 9 in the morning. Ladies bathed before noon, after their 3 o'clock naps. And by nightfall were like soft tea cakes with frostings of sweat and sweet talcum. The day was 24 hours long, but it seemed longer. There was no hurry, for there was nowhere to go and nothing to buy, no money to buy it with. Although Macomb County had recently been told that it had nothing to fear but fear itself. That summer, I was 6 years old.
Morning, Mr. Cunningham.
All right. What did you just pick up just from watching that little introduction scene of Macomb County? Any words you would describe?
Quiet, yeah.
Quiet. Yeah. Yeah. Slow paced. Can you imagine living here and then all of a sudden getting transported back there? Talk about be still, Jason's singing about that. I don't know if he or you and I could handle that still. Yeah, too still.
Vacation's kind of tough sometimes being still.
Yeah, good. When we're on vacation, we don't know what to do.
Third day in, it's like, okay, now I'm relaxed.
It's funny because I just had that conversation yesterday because Kim and I went to Indy for the Indy 500, and right after that, we went right down to my sister who lives in the country in the woods in Georgia, right? Wow. And we went, and my mom was like, "How was it? Was it good?" And I was like, what we thought of Georgia, and I was like, it was beautiful, but we went from high adrenaline to
races.
Total stop.
Yeah.
Right? And it was like culture shock.
Nice. Yeah, it's kind of. Notice he also says there was nothing to buy because none of us could afford anything to buy anyways. It was 24 hours, but it felt like longer. All of those kind of descriptions. That kind of setting is giving an interesting place to grow up, and how you are as a person is going to kind of shine through because of the setting you grew up in. Anyone get where I'm going with this now? So here's what I'd like you to consider for a minute now. All of us have had different settings we've grown up with, right? Family structures, environment, whatever you want to call it. Our childhood, we had an environment, a situation, a setting, a family life, school life as children. Then we moved into teen years, and some of us it changed, some of us it might have stayed the same. And then we moved into adulthood, right? And the setting has changed now. It's a different setting. And I would argue the setting that we're in, the space that we choose to occupy is going to affect who we are, right? And so I might just, let's just start with, we're going to open up to childhood and teens, and then when it gets to adult, actually no, because childhood and teens is going to be a little more serious conversation, isn't it? Let's do that. boy. Yeah. Okay, let's do that. Turn to the person next to you, and I want you just to describe the setting that you grew up in as a child, like the family structure and those kind of things. What was it like? How would you describe it? It's going to be funny watching Desi and Kim. It was miserable, Kim. It was terrible. But yeah, turn to the person next to you. What was it like? Was it stable? Was it joy? Was there pain? Was it strict? Was it really loose? What was it like? Were there a mom and a dad, or just a mom? Who brought you up? What were they like? Those kind of things, because that's going to essentially, that oftentimes causes people to become the people they are today. So again, take a moment and just describe your childhood, teenage years, what the setting was like for you as the music plays. Just describe that setting. Go for it. This will be kind of fun. Yeah, were you affluent? Were you poor? All right. It was kind of fun. Danielle and I were just back there talking about our childhood, and as I'm sitting here thinking, we don't really, like, those kind of conversations don't normally just happen. So it was kind of fun. She told me, come over here and talk to me. And I thought, oh, yeah. So it was kind of fun to, like, thank you for doing that, Danielle. Because usually I'm just roaming around, like, doing whatever, but it was good to actually, like, talk to my wife. And Danielle has this annoying way of pulling things out of you. And so she asked some questions, and I thought, oh, I haven't thought about that in a long time. Like, there's some things about my childhood that I realized, like, I was a latchkey kid for, I don't know, like, most of growing up, from, like, I want to say 3rd grade all the way through. My sister and I would come home, and we would just kind of do our thing. And I remember when we were younger, during the summer, when we lived in Lansing, we basically lived at Grandma and Grandpa's all week. And then when we moved to Grand Rapids, we basically were just kind of on our own all day. And I thought, oh, some thoughts occurred to me. What did we eat? Like, what did we make? And I'm now remembering certain things. You're going to see me all of a sudden in trauma in a few minutes because I had that much ramen or whatever. But yeah, interesting when you start to, like, go back there. Did anyone else have an aha moment, Mike?
I grew up a lot like you did. Latchkey and Flintstones and bologna sandwich. Fried bologna sandwich.
Oh, fried bologna. You went
Bologna,
step further.
It just
That's good.
it pops up all over. See?
Oh, I never did it. I never did that. That's so good.
We never put it in a pan, we put it straight on the fire and then.
Ooh, nice. That's awesome. Anyone else have, like, a moment where you thought, oh yeah, my childhood, that's what it looked like? Anybody else?
I don't want to see, because, like, my parents, they gave us a lot, and, like, I don't want to think of it negatively.
Oh, sure.
But so there's mental illness that runs in my family, and growing up, there's always an explosion going on in the house. Like, there was always tense. Like, it was like, who's gonna lash out at me next?
Wow, yeah.
And now being older and more self-aware and understanding how to channel my energy and what's going on, I'm like, where was meditation when I was a child?
Nice.
I had somebody teach me how to literally channel my energy different ways. It was just like, yell at each other and go to therapy. And I would yell at my parents, I'm like, I don't want to go to therapy. And they're like, go to therapy. I'm like, that's
And that became the explosion.
I remember, I kid you not, me and my sister stormed out of a therapy session and ran and hid in the woods for like an hour. My parents all hated us.
There's no therapy in the end of
It was bad. I mean, we learned something that day that we didn't know was the situation in the family, so that's why we left. But I'm like, therapy, I always knew therapy wasn't my thing. And I'm like, why did my parents force me to go to this thing? And now that I'm older, and I'm like, like I said, I'm just like so much more self-aware. It's crazy. And
That's
like,
cool.
So.
Therapy for us was ignore it and watch America's Funniest Home Videos, and then go to bed and just pretend it away. We got really good at that.
It was funny when we were talking that she was saying how outbursts or, it explode, and yet in our home, it was an outburst. There needed to be outbursts, and there needed to be therapy. But there was all this going on, but it was under wraps.
So it was all held in.
It's all held in. And then they were acting out or reacting and all that kind of stuff.
So you were like cringing at when's the next explosion, and you were like, can we just let this thing blow up? Yeah. You're like Prozac Nation, like.
Passive aggressive and aggressive.
Yeah. Oh wow.
And how I was telling him how like, it wasn't my role model, but this is how. So I used to work in a daycare. I love kids. I work with kids, and one of my biggest frustrations is when especially a teacher. If it's a parent, that's your child. You do you. That's your own thing. But when a teacher at the daycare would like yell or something at a child and be just like, oh, you're in timeout or something like that, that would kill me because I'm like, that's not teaching them anything. Right. And so now teacher that I'm like, we're gonna take 5 minutes and we're gonna talk you through this and we're gonna figure out how to channel this energy.
Will you be my mommy?
And that wasn't modeled for you. That's something you had to learn.
Yeah, because I'm like, I know that it's not gonna make them feel good to just be yelled at and set in timeout. It's not gonna work out that way. What are they learning from that? They're just gonna get more angry that they can't be playing right now. So it's like you have to talk them through it. And it's weird because I remember these conversations when I worked at the daycare with these kids. And the daycare I worked at was, these kids were horrible. Like, they were all system kids, parents incarcerated, low income. And so they didn't have anybody to just sit down and talk to them. And so that was like I said, it was weird because I'm like, where is this coming from? Like, this wasn't modeled for me, but it was just like, this is my instinct of this is how to handle the situation.
So awesome.
So if you guys ever need me to talk to a child.
I love it. Well, mine are on the list. You're gonna have like parents bringing all our kids to you.
What are you doing tomorrow?
Yeah, exactly. What do you do tomorrow?
55-year-old child.
Real quick about that, it just acknowledges their personhood as a child, to acknowledge a child's personhood and their soul, and that they are a valuable entity is epic. And it will carry them through the rest of their lives. I needed that, that's why I said what I said.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That was not modeled to me either. That is not like a normal reaction I'll have. Like, it would be nice if it was.
Was just because the culture is so different in Mexico. I was just telling her we grew up with the same people for so many years, and I miss that because it's just like a sense of community and family. So when
Family structure was a lot closer.
It was like the mom stay at home with all the kids and the dads go to work, and I grew up with the same kids for like 14 years.
Wow.
So it was just a lot of stability. People don't move around. They stay there. They grow up. They marry each other, and then they build another community there next to it or in the same place. So we just, everybody's moms are our moms. So it's just like.
Oh, you got disciplined from like 5 people, 5 moms instead of 1 mom.
And birthdays were great because we got presents from everybody.
That's cool.
And Christmases, 10 families, 15 families together. So it was. I miss that so much because my kids don't have that. This generation, it's absolutely.
Right, we're definitely more individualistic.
Yes, now all the kids are just so independent and they just want to grow so fast and you're like, slow down, go get dirty, go outside.
Go get dirty, go play in the mud.
Go eat some dirt, something.
Nice.
Build the immune system.
Yeah, that's like something that I really, truly hope that it comes back in a sense where kids are kids and they learn to be kids and enjoy life.
I think it's weird because we have a double standard, and my instant reaction when she's saying that is, talk to me when you have kids. That's an instant reaction. No, I'm getting there. But I mean, we should kind of a little bit have that approach, and most everybody here has come to my house when we have my daughter's birthdays and stuff. And I make it a point every year to talk about them and pump them up during their birthday in front of everybody, because we have a double standard with our own kids. What we say is great, like, oh, it's great to talk to them and whatever, work them through it. Yeah. It's easy for us to do that to other kids. Yeah. If your kids come to my house, your kids, I'll say, over here we don't do that. If it's my kids, I'm like, freaking do that. So and those are your kids. You should be nicer to your kids. Right. And in the same opposite end of the spectrum, it's very easy for me to say, well, Ashlyn, you got a nice haircut. I like that nice dress you're wearing. But my kids, look, Dad, does this dress look okay? Yeah, that's fine. Wear your shoes. So if we use the same approach that we're giving to other people, because I think that's our true, what we believe that we should be doing with our own family, I think it would be a much better situation.
Yeah, you're right. Or even, I think, this is stuff I should be doing with kids. And I should probably act that way toward adults too. Which I'm usually like, no, that guy's just an idiot. Or whatever. And the reality is, well, no. Like, I probably need to respond in a way that I would to child, because it's a loving, caring, like, intentional way. Why am I not doing it there? And if we don't move on, it's going to get super late. But I want you just to consider now, like, in adulthood, what does your setting look like? Has it changed, evolved, morphed? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it, and again, better, worse, those are very ambiguous statements, but what does it look like now compared to then? is it healthy? Is it bringing life? What new conflicts now do you experience in the setting? Because no matter what setting you go to, anyone that's ever left one job for another job, you just exchange old conflicts for new ones. Different. It's going to be different. You hated your boss then, but now you have this person. Now you're the boss, and now everybody hates you. Whatever it is. Yeah. So consider that, because I find that interesting to consider, to think about. Next part is there's always a conflict. There's always some kind of conflict that's going to drive the story. And so in this book, what you're going to find with Scout, we're going to see racism, we're going to see class distinctions and conflict. We're going to see how to move past your fears, especially as a little kid, but then as an adult. We're going to go through all these different conflicts, and it's going to open up some really cool stuff for us as a community to discuss. And I think we've already got a little, piece of it so far this morning, but I think you're going to love how the different conflicts that are going to arise. Here's the part I wanted to move to. Anyone ever try to put together one of these? Have you ever gotten to a place where you're like, crap, I don't know who came after this person or before that person? So the oldest relative you have, I'm just curious, what country were they from? Raise your hand if you can think like, this is the oldest relative I can think of, this is where they were from. Hungary. Greece.
I have a book at my grandma's house. It goes all the way back to 1542 at Carthage, Luxembourg.
1542. So cool. What a gift to give your family. Like, hey, here's our family. Here's it's beautiful. Oh.
King George.
Italy. Nice. Anybody else?
Yeah. Scotland and Prussia.
Scotland, Prussia. Romania. Germany. Big surprise. Yeah, a lot of Europe.
Spain.
Adam and Eve. We have a book. That's too funny. The first dysfunctional family. Apparently no belly buttons. Yeah. Think about it. All right. Good. So family trees are really interesting, and you can find some interesting stories when you look at family trees, right? You begin to learn, Grandpa's great-grandfather was this person, and he did this for a living, and they had this conflict arise, or they worked here and here and here, and maybe your family was an agrarian family, or maybe yours was a business family, whatever it was. Interesting to look at, because you dig deep enough, you're going to find a lot of beauty, but you'll also find what? Yeah, there's going to be some drama and conflict as well, no matter what kind of family tree you have. And so Scout, she starts the story by introducing where her family comes from. In the South, it was very important, especially during that era, that Great Depression era. In the South, you wanted to be connected to some of the great generals of the South. You wanted to show that you were a prestigious family, right? And so for them, though, Simon Finch was a fur trader from England, and he left because of religious persecution, and he established that Finch farm on the Alabama River. And so that's where their family comes from. And years and years and years later, the three children that are alive today in the novel is Jack Finch. The first doctor of the family went to school, became a doctor. The first family member to go to school before Jack was Atticus, the oldest one. He went to school and became a lawyer. And then he moved to Macomb County. It was just kind of kitty corner to where the Finches first started their land. And then there's Alexandra Finch, who decided to stay home and watch the landing. And she is an individual who's very focused on Southern living, Southern pride, Southern hospitality. She's that woman. She's that character in the story. Very focused on class. We are Finches. We're of the upper class. We are not Cunninghams. And so she's going to be that character that you're going to love and hate. So just giving you forewarning. These are the different individuals that she introduces Scout in the very beginning. And so interesting when you consider your own family history. What characteristics define your family? If you could just say that now in this group, what characteristics would you say, like when you think of a Wuerfel or Rivera or whatever, whatever you are, what would you say are characteristics that you might tell people about your family? Anybody? We are, fill in the blank.
Hard workers.
Hard workers. Dramatic. All right, give me more. I had a conversation with Ashlyn. I'll just tell you where this is coming from. She was invited to play. I'll even go back a little further. I'm watching her play soccer. She scored 6 goals. Her team had 7. And I'm watching her. I'm so excited. I'm that dad who's just like brimming with pride. And I saw this guy come up, and he had this clipboard. And he's like the coach of all the coaches. He goes up and asks her name. And he writes it down. And we get an email that says, we would like Ashlyn to join our club soccer. Anyone that knows like club soccer, that's like a big deal. And so excited for Ashlyn. But Ashlyn went to the first practice. And these girls have been playing with each other for years. And so they're really, really good. And she felt like an outsider. She didn't know all the drills. It was hard. And she kept looking at us and saying, can I just quit? Can I just be done? And we said, well, just hang out, do your best for this practice. You're in the middle of it. Afterwards, I took Ashlyn out to Brewster's Ice Cream. This episode is sponsored by Brewster's Ice Cream. I'm looking at the camera. We went to Brewster's, and I told her about my own experiences and my own stories with sports and being an outsider sometimes and not being allowed to do this and this, but fighting through it, learning. And I said to her, Ashlyn, we're Wuerfels. And she looked at me and laughed. She's like, whatever, Dad. I said, no, we're Wuerfels. And I talked about Grandpa. I talked about how hardworking he was. We don't quit. We keep fighting. We're good at sports. We're athletic. We're this, that. We're Wuerfels. And so now I have this joke with her every time. Like when she's feeling frustrated, I go, we're Wuerfels. And she kind of, but we're Wuerfels. Anyone else? Like we're this. What are the characteristics? Anybody?
Sure.
Yep.
Because of the divorce situation I had as an only child growing up, I didn't understand my strength, but my last name that I was born with is Kraft, which means strength in German. And so the strength, the characteristic I come forward with is strength.
Nice.
And it's multifaceted. There's a lot of love there and a lot of self-value that I discovered through my struggles.
I'm a Kraft. I'm strong.
Yeah.
I love myself. I love others. Kraft. Anyone else? I am Groot. Anybody else? I'm a Rivera.
Oh, ooh.
If you're so lucky.
Yeah. What does it mean to be a Rivera?
The chosen few.
What does it mean to the chosen? Yeah. Anybody else? Delora. I'm an Oswald.
Right.
If they're watching, no.
I am hospitable,
Hospitable. Good.
yet intimidating.
Yeah. I'm gonna bite you in, and I'm gonna terrify you with.
I don't get that.
the look.
People are always intimidated because I'm quiet. If I'm cooking and I say, come over, we're having a party, I want everybody here. Everybody comes over like, oh, Steve's mad. I'm just quiet, dude. Come in, chill out.
Yeah. I think it's when we.
I'm quiet, there you go.
We'll ask Steve if we can help him. He's like, no. Okay. We didn't really want to help anyways. We said it just to be nice.
Yeah, we know.
We know.
I wanted to talk about the characteristic of that defines our family. Like, I'm talking about like my family right now or my family like before me, because this is where the conflict comes. Because I just told him right now I don't want to take like my family's characteristics. I don't want that. So where do I start? You know, and talking about the family tree. When we had our first child, we were actually like, oh yeah, let's be like perfect parents and then make a nice frame and then put names. And then when we were about to start, we're like, holy crap, we actually have a lot of unknown people.
Oh, okay, yeah, gotcha.
Unknown dad, unknown mom. So we can't even have a family tree, really, because there's no name we can put on a spot. And we were like, you know what? We can share all that tree. We just have our own family.
Yeah.
You start from right here.
We're starting from scratch. We're starting a new tree. We're digging up the roots and we're
The characteristic, it starts from right here.
good for you.
And go down.
But we don't believe that our family tree defines us either, and we don't want us to define our kids, want them to be themselves. So
Okay.
we are Rivera's, yeah, okay, we're strong as a unit together, but you are strong by yourself.
Good.
So that's the characteristic.
Nice. I like
What's
it.
interesting, Tony, is that you could ask everyone in here, and a lot of people can go back kind of far, but if you ask a black person, they really can't go much further than the Civil War. They didn't keep records of black people passing on their first names or belonging to someone else. So the characteristics that they would choose would, you know, obviously be such a vast difference than what we would expose. Like if they were to try to ruminate, well, gee, where did I come from? It could only be strength, perseverance, resilience, heart, you know what I mean? And it's like, so really how important is it? Well, I guess, you know, it's arguable.
And that's why my friend Joseph, his father was one of my professors in Andrews University in the English department, and he was a strong black man who would say, our family tree was robbed from us, but our story is what we hold on to the most. And I thought, ooh, that's really good. Let me move on. Oh. I like the story. I like the family tree of Jesus. In Matthew, there's this really interesting family tree, and keep in mind, like, there's two different family trees that are shown, whether you're looking at Mark or Matthew, and they're different. They don't agree. Big whoop. Matthew, though, shares some interesting stuff about Jesus' family tree. And again, if you are in that time era in the first century, Jewish people, you want your family tree to look good, right? And the emperors during that time period, who were also claiming to be the son of gods, their family trees, they were all connected to like the ancient heroes. They were all connected to the great emperors. That was their family tree. But Jesus' family tree, while there are some connections to some of the older stories and heroes, there's also some really like shady stuff. And so I wanted to share with you, the family tree of Jesus, just like Scout's family tree is filled with a lot of darkness and a lot of like slavery, a lot of movements that maybe we would cringe at today, Jesus was actually worse. In his family tree, you've got prostitutes, polygamists, pagans, murderers. It's a pretty gnarly family tree. So let me share with you, Rahab, the prostitute, considered faithful to God, who was faithful to the God of Israel. Rahab, the prostitute, the action she takes is one that many would consider, especially a Jewish person, it's a pretty negative action that you're taking there, Rahab. Kind of shady. Look at Solomon. Had over 700 wives. He was essentially an arms dealer at that time. Like that was Solomon. Yay, Solomon, right? He had the idea for a king was you couldn't ever have too much gold for yourself. He had so much gold, he needed storehouses for all of his gold. And that's where we get the number 666. That was actually the number that they gave the amount of gold he had. Interesting, right? Solomon is a huge, painful spot on that family tree. Manasseh was a pagan worshiper, practiced witchcraft, even sacrifices his own child, right? That was Jesus. Like, you guys thought your weird Uncle Ralph was kind of a... Jesus had this guy, right? David. Think of David. We talk about David as like this awesome hero, but also consider some of the negative elements of David, because if this David were to live today, we would be talking about this stuff. The Goliath story would be like, yeah, but big deal. But did you hear what he did? Like, he had a soldier, the very best soldier in his military army, the most elite. He raped that dude's wife, right? That's what the word means, by the way, in the Greek, when you read the story. It actually means he took her, he actually rapes her against her will. That's like that's not on the felt board story that you heard when you were little, but that's what that word meant. Yeah. He rapes her, and then he has that elite soldier who's fighting for him murdered. Like, this dude, bad news. Like, this is the guy that we're all cheering for when he goes to prison the rest of his life. That's the story. And so I wanted to share with you this. Family trees are really colorful. Your past is really, really colorful. Where we came from, we have really good and bad experiences. And here's what I love. Every time I have an idea I want to share with you, you already get there halfway through. It's funny. Steve will raise his hand and be like, yeah, but. And I'm like, oh, crap, he's gonna steal it. And he does. It's perfect. I love it. Because here's the thing. Family trees, they don't define us. Your past doesn't define you. What your parents chose to do, the environment and the setting you grew up with doesn't define you. So tell me what that feels like to hear that. Your past settings, the way you were brought up doesn't define you. What do you think?
I think anyone that really falls into that belief that their background or something else defines them is so, to be blunt, is making excuses for not choosing a way to be happy. Because even if they came from murderers, rapists, slave owners, whatever, you can choose. God gave us free will to make choices to be different and to be happy. And I think you can, your actions are not someone else's actions. Your actions are what you choose to do.
And I find the people I know who are so quick to bring up, my dad did this, no wonder this and this and this, I think, well, yeah, because you're the exact same person now.
But even if that's true, let's just assume it is. Every one of us has, behaves a way because, like for instance, we were talking earlier that if a man has a family and he beats his son as an alcoholic, typically that son's going to grow up, marry a girl that is open to that, and he's going to have a kid and beat his son. It's not until you self-analyze and understand why you are the way you are, what's healthy about it and what isn't, and what you have power over to change to be happy. Ultimately, it's you who makes that change and that decision anyway. So your past is only relevant to the extent in which you can point out the negatives and are empowered to correct them. So going forward, you break whatever cycle or chain existed. And then it becomes so unimportant. It's just like, oh yeah, I came from that. And look what I've done. I bear the pain, I give the awareness and the pain of it, and then made the choice to change it. It's empowering.
I love it.
Right.
You know, and that's a big word right there, that word awareness.
Awareness.
You know, because I could even look at today in my own family, my immediate family, but my parents' family, that there's a lack of awareness, and there's a lack of willingness to change. Just stuck flat out.
Yes.
You know, and so I just look at that, right, and I feel bad for that. I realize that I'm not stuck in that, and I'm thankful.
Yes.
Nice.
To learn from that, to be at a different place. I have my own little challenges at times that I'm choosing to learn and grow from for myself, my own little work, but a lot everybody around me, right? And I learn and grow and take all that in and apply it, right? So I look back and I see that could be definitely colorful.
Yeah.
And it can be difficult, but it doesn't, like you said, doesn't define me. And I'm not stuck with that.
Going off of what they both said, it's a matter of choosing to be a victim or allow, like, looking at what has happened, saying, okay, that's happened, and it's opened up my awareness and understanding of other people and what's going on around me and what I can do to not do that.
Yes.
Perfect.
Because if you do take the victimized, oh, poor me, like, this is my parents, this is, it's inevitable, that's a choice.
Right.
That's a matter of decision, not a matter of fate.
Nice. So good.
God gave us the freedom of choice,
Yeah.
not a set predated thing pattern that is gonna happen to us regardless. We
Open.
make our own destiny. We choose what we want.
Good.
God left space for human intervention.
I love
Yes.
it.
Unfortunately, though, that sounds like common sense to us. That's why we all have these, we're all here because we have a lot in common. But in my experience of life, the majority of the people that I come across and just what I've observed in life don't share that at all. At all.
That's well said.
And I think there is that lie that your past, your parents, your experiences, all of that should define you. When the truth is, those are things that should texture our experience and move us toward hopefully a better and bigger awareness of who we want to become.
When we truly accept that they don't define us, then that's really liberating.
Yes.
We have to really truly accept that.
Nice.
But I have to say, it depends where you grow up too, because culture has a big role in that.
Culture definitely is
Yeah,
a role.
because if you literally can be like against your own culture that you love because you grew up with it, and so it's like not only if you decide to be like what you want to be, and decide that your family doesn't define you, then the problem is it's the whole tribe that you're gonna push away.
Which is why I like that analogy that you gave of if it gets to that place where I'm choosing this, to live in this kind of awareness of life and make changes now, sometimes the family tree is uprooted and you take what fruit or seeds are good of it and you help create the new one, and the old just becomes stories, but the new is...
Well, ultimately, I guess you have to decide, like, I don't know what specifically, but I can think of maybe like Hawaiian culture, where you would kind of be like if you choose to say, hey, this part didn't make me feel good, and I'm going to, I kind of reject this because it's not my happiness, I'm going to go this direction. Maybe the tribe could go, oh, you're rejecting us, you're saying that we're doing something like that. So then you have, or disrespectful. So then you have to make that decision. That I can see that being an enormous difficulty, because then you are risking alienating people you love, but you want to be happy. So
And it does, and I can see how on the flip side of it, someone choosing to not participate in something that's not working for them can definitely look like you're dissing, you're being unapproving, you're being malicious of the other side. Yeah.
Yeah, by making that decision, by doing that, that's kind of what I was saying. It's not only you just deciding to do that and you don't want to be a part of that, but it's almost like you're blowing the cover on them. You're exposing them, and it's disrespectful,
And it's a very hard step to do because you love that tribe.
Yeah.
It's not like you don't like that.
Right.
You don't accept certain things they do or certain behavior, but it has nothing to do with loving each other or whatever. But
They don't see
in
it.
their understanding, if you get out of that tribe, then you're breaking the.
Yes.
Wow, that's interesting. Either side, when they play the victim,
Yeah.
it gets ugly. It has the potential to be ugly.
It has to do with the cultures. There's a difference. There's two specific cultures. There's a collectivist culture, which honors unity among groups, and to break that unity is to disrespect where you've come from and to forfeit your group identity. And then there's individualistic cultures, which unity is important, but they value self-esteem and personal growth. And often, coming from a home that's one or the other, is finding a place in between where you balance knowing who you are in relation to self and knowing who you are in relation to others.
The collective. It's beautiful. Oh, have you taken that course on anthropology? That was one of my favorites. I love it.
I totally kind of agree with that. My own scenario that kind of goes along with what Desi is saying, because if the other side is, whatever side it is still fighting for you to be on their side,
Right.
that means they still feel there's a chance for you to go to their side. But once they realize that you are who you are, I promise I'll be 30 seconds, I'll be really quick. So throughout high school, you know, all of my friends drank. My dad was alcoholic. My family are drinkers, like social drinkers, whatever. Alcohol was around me my whole life. I never took a drink of alcohol in my life because whatever reason, oh, I don't want to be like that, or oh, I don't want that. Whatever it is, psychologically, you can pick it apart or whatever, but I never drank. So I was never excluded from school parties. I turned into the designated driver. I was in school.
You just owned it.
And that
I'm the
same
DD.
tribe that originally was trying to get me, come on, just a drink, it's just nothing, it's just a beer, it's just one shot, or just, it's Jello, you know, just so, that they became my protectors. When we'd go and there's a new person and they're like, oh, somebody saying, oh, here's Steve, just one. They're like, oh man, leave him alone, man, that's just Steve, just leave him alone.
It's just Steve.
You know?
Yeah,
So you can change and still be part of that tribe and accept it, but you have to be ready to accept it yourself.
Yeah.
More often than not, you have to be prepared to take a hit.
Yeah.
You're taking food coloring and you're dropping it in a glass of water and you're saying,
Yeah.
I'm different than you. And either you can reject
Yes.
me like oil and water, or you can
Yeah.
diffuse with me and
Yeah.
we can learn from each
Oh,
other.
I like
That's
that.
the hardest part.
And some of us, I think we've experienced where the glass is able to stay. You can have both. And then others of us have had people, the collective say, and toss you out. So we've all had like different moments with that. Either way, if my focus is on me, my awareness growing, allowing me to be me, you to be you, that's beautiful. I wanted to say this last part. We can create a new story on the shoulders of those who've come before us, learning from the past, creating new. I love the idea in this book. Scout is a part of a Southern culture, and she says, I'm going to choose to live this differently. In the midst of racism, injustice, pain, brokenness, I'm going to live this story differently because I'm going to take the things that Atticus taught me and remove some of the venom and live it fully. And so you're going to see such a beautiful story emerge from this. But today, I hope what happened for you is that you, were able to at least consider some of the things of the past, consider how it affected you, know it doesn't define you, but it can help texture your experience now for the present. Was this fun for anyone but me? Oh, and wasn't it fun to like let this kind of be the jumping point? I can't wait to get into this book.
Real quick, they
Yep.
just had the Tony Awards.
Oh, yeah.
That play is running on Broadway.
Is it really?
It won either for best director. It won several awards.
I believe
that. Best actor.
If you guys, I mean, okay, this is a lot to ask, but if you could pick up this book, if you could, this first chapter, I'm just telling you right now, and anyone watching online, yeah, the first chapter was page 3 to 14. And so like, yeah, it takes such a short time, but you will fall in love with this piece. And Scout, when we discuss it together, you'll want to talk about the book. And so let this be kind of part of your like daily, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Like maybe let it be one of those things that kind of, you will find out like it's beautiful. Oh, sorry.
One of those things that will have us have that calm, quiet time where
Yeah.
we don't hear the world
Yeah.
noisily, because that's what happens when I read, when I can read, and I'm going to get it on Audible, so I'll be more likely to.
It's going to transport you to a different setting, a different time, and now that you kind of consider the ideas of family setting, the whole story is going to pop, and you're going to love it. Cool? Yeah. All right, so we wanted to end this way. Fathers, many of us, I like that Jason brought up, his father, and I was hoping that he'd be here to share more about it, but many of us, we have good and bad experiences with dad. Some of us don't have any experiences with dad. And I wanted to acknowledge that there is a beautiful role for a father. in our culture. And while some of us haven't experienced it fully, or some of us have, today we just want to celebrate that role. And so there's just a couple of us in this room right now, and Joe, watching online, we'll give you your baggie today too. But what I want to happen is, where'd Donovan go? He probably was like, oh, okay. He's such a humble guy. He probably thought, I don't need a gift. But if you guys could come up and grab a bag, and I want to do this with you. If you, Steve, grab a bag. This is for you. You're a father. Okay, Kim's gonna give out bags. Yeah, you can choose Spider-Man or whichever bag you want. Mike, come on up here, buddy. Sweet.
I'm gonna take the yellow pill.
Okay, let's have that. That'll be nice. We haven't done that in a long time. I'll kind of have you come up a second. So here's what I want to do. I asked a bunch of the kids a couple weeks ago, just asked them different things they like about some of you. And I went to the dollar store and I tried to find different things that would fit, because, we're on a budget. But it was fun. It was a lot of fun to do. And so what I'd like to do is I want the dads, you're just going to reach inside there, and you're going to read a couple of these for us. You're just going to show us but I'd like us to just read some of those things, because they were said about you and thought about you. And so as you get some of these, why don't you start that first one? Tell us what that is.
With each hug, smile, and laugh, you create more opportunities to build a better life for our family.
Beautiful. And it's a picture, or it's a
Lego.
little Lego. So you help build a better life for us. Yeah, that's right. So there's a Lego. All right, Mike, what do you have in your hand?
We are tools.
So it's a tool set.
Yeah, tool set.
Okay.
We are thankful for your constant ability to fix things that are broken, to mend what needs repairing, and restore what needs restoring.
By the way, your kids didn't say all that. We did fix the verbiage there for you. Yeah, that was Nanihi right there. Good. Donovan, what do you have?
That's a hero.
A little superhero.
It says you're a real life superhero. I feel safe and protected when you're near.
That's safe and protected. Steve, I feel like there's a couple others in there. Yeah, there's a yo-yo. All right.
You bring stability even when life is filled with all of the ups and downs. Yo-yo.
That's so cool.
And I think there's an airplane, if someone wants to read that one.
You give dreams the ability to soar with all of your love and support.
And there's one other, right? Okay, Steve's got it. Should be like a...
Even though our house sometimes feels like a zoo, you are an amazing keeper of our family's heart.
Oh, I like that.
Right, and so we have like little tigers and cheetahs and rhinos. We did all this because we want to acknowledge we love you guys, and we think it's awesome that you want to be a part of your kids' lives and help make that family tree what it is. So we honor you guys today. Desi's going to read a poem, a Father's Day poem. Thank you. I'm going to grab my bag too. And more than likely, we're going to give these toys to our kids. That's just how it is. But Donovan's going to play with them this Saturday at home. But Desi's going to come up, and she's going to read a poem before we finish.
This is kind of impromptu. It's been a really long time. Some of you guys were here like the very beginning when I was reading a poem almost every single week. It's been a while, so bear with me. This is not actually a Father's Day poem. At the beginning of the year, I had a friend challenge me to write a poem about what it is I desired for myself in the future, who I wanted to become. And I couldn't do that without talking about where I'd been or where I was or how I came to make the decisions that I'd made and what it had cost me. But despite all of that, in my past or my present, it gave me a clear indication of who I wanted to be in the future. I turned to look at the valley from the summit, and there laid my wasteland. The vices I'd used to numb it, the fragile heart-shaped glass shattered into sand. Droplets of tears that would stain met porcelain, and as I waited for the sting to ease, my patience and compassion wore thin, the posture of kneeling, leaving bruises on my knees. Stone after stone, I turned over my thoughts. Had this climb satisfied my soul, or had the fumbling upward walk left my stomach in knots, reminding me how little I held control? And when the wind carried a whisper to my ear, the gust that blows sails to Eden told me, the desires of your heart are near. And yet, I looked at the vastness of the horizon and did not see. Wave after wave, I let the sea pelt my chapped skin, carry me further away and draw me with the tide. But over my shoulder lay where I'd been, my heart reminding me as I bent to my knees and cried. No tempest would wait for me to sail through, but here was I, venturing towards fabled waters of peace, resisting the winds of contention that blew, knowing that no manner of discord would cease. But hand to page, I chronicled my dreams, laying back in the cradle of dark sheets and incandescents, musing that life is a series of endless cosmic schemes, and my desires are ultimately of little consequence. Midnights conspired to reduce my hopes to footnotes, to shroud clarity in rose-colored hazes of lust, to reduce the meaning of life to romantic anecdotes, and convert providence to hands of distrust. But even the night shed light on the bed I'd made. The white glow rippled across the surface of discontent. I could not in good conscience again lay where I'd laid, for this was not the purpose for which I was sent. To lie still or wander in a measly open-eyed slumber violated the earth-shaking magnificence of deep oceans and burning embers. For what manner of true force could doubt encumber when she carries with her the fire the womb remembers? Ears that heard through the walls of a thin womb listen still as discernment cautions fearfully against caring, while eyes meet with the souls of all in the room, saying, for love, their burdens are worth bearing. To what end, I cannot describe the direction of my heart, but the willingness to be led I can surrender. When the logic of my head and the pull of my soul lie apart, I have but opposites to render. When one day I will wake to see the cyclical world around me at the summit's point, I want not to wake alone and speak to the space, but turn to one I know he did anoint, that by direction gives worthy chase. When next I sail into the no longer fabled waters of peace of mind, I want not to be inhibited by fear and self-rejection, but to set my eyes on the purpose for which I was designed, to offer, support, and pray for direction. When tomorrow I am beckoned into the quiet of midnight, I want not to be seduced by its enigmatic energy, but to speak honestly and conjure the will to resist, be free, to fight, to be as compassionately soft and as wickedly bold as I'll ever be. Now, right now, as I settle on the precipice of not knowing, I want my heart to show. Not all can hear the music I speak to or see beneath the words I pen, but I live in the currents beneath the surface where it costs to know. But irrefutably and beautifully so, despite confusion, feeling, logic, and spirit, I am who I am now, and I am who I was then, and I want to be known.
It's good to have you share poetry again. I like it. And it fits perfectly with our discussion today, that moving, growing person who we're becoming. And I like, I was going to read you this too. I knew it was here, and your poem reminded me of it a bit. At the very end of the book, and again, spoiler alert, not really, because I'm not going to tell you any of the big details, but the very end, Scout's talking about this painful experience that they experienced together as a family. And she's pointing out that this individual who had experienced so much pain and injustice, and the community had kind of pushed away, she said, he was real nice. Says his hands were under my chin. This is Atticus. His hands were under my chin, pulling up the cover, tucking me into bed. He said, most people are, Scout, when you finally see them. When you finally see them. He turned out the light and went into Jem's room. He would be there all night and he would be there when Jem woke up in the morning. I think that's such a beautiful picture of not just community, not just the father figure, but also this picture of who we all are and who we're all becoming. And this picture that we are not alone, that we are stronger than we realize, and that we too can create the kind of new family trees, the new futures that are going to be just brilliant and beautiful and filled with new life and new mistakes. Yeah? Sweet. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming today. We're going to have to have you guys help finish the rest of the food back there because there's a lot of it. Let me pray with you. God, we are so thankful for community, for family trees, for histories. And though they don't define us, we thank you that they can help texture the new direction we're heading. And so in this new direction, we ask that we will continue holding on to the positive, good friendships in our lives, helping those things direct us and helping us become the very best version of ourselves, creating better and better settings for us and our kids and our kids' kids. Amen. Cool. We're done.